Hi there. Goodness. Welcome to this pilot episode of Shouldn'ta Come. It's an episode about Bill Shorten, who's leaving politics to join the University of Canberra. We recorded it to figure out how this was all going to work, and we're pretty happy with it. But our main episodes will be launching in 2 weeks, with the first episode of the series on Anthony Albanese. Tune in next week for another preview episode about Peter Dutton. I hope you enjoy, and we'll see you next time. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Yanni.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Are you excited to talk about Bill Shorten?
I am actually. He's such a nothing man, and so I'm excited to see if there's anything there.
He is famously a nothing man. I'm sorry to say that I don't have a whole lot. There's definitely more to him than you might think, but the overall story is that Bill Shorten is intentionally a bit of a nothing man. I'm calling him the Fraction Warrior.
I'm sorry, again?
Yeah, the Fraction Warrior.
Fraction Warrior.
Yeah, it's a pun based on a book. But welcome to Shouldn'ta Come.
I mean, people are entitled to their sexual proclivities. Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom. But I ain't spending any time on it. But I ain't spending any time on it. Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom. But I ain't spending any time on it. It remains on every 3 months. A person was torn to pieces by
Bill Shorten.
North Queensland.
Hi everyone, welcome to Shouldn'ta Come. This is Yanni.
And I'm Kieran.
And we're here to tell you about why we shouldn't have come here. Through politics. Yay. Through Australian politicians. Yay. Really interesting people. We're going to be celebrating the career of one of Australia's most politicians, Bill Shorten. As
He's absolutely very politician.
He certainly is. I don't think anyone could accuse him of being not so. Bill Shorten retiring is big news for the reason that someone else will be there. So I'm going to be using a couple of sources. The most important one is Faction Man, Bill Shorten's Pursuit of Power by David Marr, who is a long-time Australian political journalist who has a very interesting history. I definitely recommend looking at it. I also read a little bit of For the Common Good by Bill Shorten, but it was very boring.
Oh.
And I read some Guardian, Australian Financial Review, Sydney Morning Herald, and other articles. Bill Shorten was born William Richard Shorten on the 12th of May, 1967, making him a Taurus, in Melbourne. He's a twin with Robert Shorten. His mother, Anne Rosemary McGrath, is a university academic and a law person of some sort from Irish Australians who came over during the gold rush. His father, William Robert Shorten, is a POM, a marine engineer who had worked with unions for most of his adult life. They met on a cruise ship, his parents that is, in Guam, where William was an engineer and Anne was on holiday. William and Anne had a tumultuous-ish relationship in that William seemed to be a father. Bill describes him as old-fashioned and not hands-on domestically. His burst of parenting was on Saturdays. Sometimes he took us to the dock where he worked. And in describing his father, Bill often describes him as someone born out of the Great Depression. He grew up in England during the Great Depression, and so his attitudes towards his family were quite similar, although he was a very passionate union man. His mother, however, he describes her as a trailblazer in the field and cites her as an extremely important figure in his life as his hero. Bill went to Xavier College, and he was regarded as a great fencer and a debater at this school, which is one of the most connected schools in Melbourne. His brother, Robert, was a taller, better-looking, darker track star. It's how he's described in multiple sources. His parents insisted on him going to church, but they went to a Polish service because it was quicker, at the request of Anne. They weren't Polish, no one in the family is. At one point, the priest of the non-Polish service asked if Bill and Rob could help as altar boys, but Anne immediately said no, which was good, because the priest was Kevin O'Donnell. Have you heard of Kevin O'Donnell?
I'm so nervous. Who is Kevin O'Donnell?
No one interesting other than one of the most notorious pedophiles in Australia's history.
Fuck off!
Yeah, so early in his life, Bill came into contact with Kevin O'Donnell in the Catholic Church. His mother had a good instinct and kept him away. Maybe she knew a bit more than she let on, or maybe it was just not the kind of thing she wanted him to do.
Damn, dodged a bullet though, holy shit.
Absolutely. point where the Bill Shorten story could have been very different.
Yeah.
Had it gone differently. But luckily enough for Bill Shorten, he went pretty well at Xavier College and enrolled in Monash in 1985. People around him talk about his ambition at the time, but he recounts it as choosing to go to Monash because his mum was there.
Aw. That's kind of nice, actually.
His first nickname that we're going to be covering is Private Bill Shorten.
Yeah, alright.
Because he joined the University Regiment of the Army Reserves.
Right.
Did you know about University Regiments of Army Reserves?
No, I didn't. So what's the deal with university regiments? Do they just... Is it like when you're in, what's the one where you're not actively serving?
Army Reserves.
Yeah, reserves. So
Yeah,
it's just
it's the
just
reserves
reserves, but
for
you're also
nerds.
going to uni.
Yeah, it's Army Reserves, but you're going to uni. You did a bit of
And
training.
you're not even getting free uni from the army. That's ridiculous.
No, you still... I mean, at the time, everyone
I mean,
was
I guess
getting
everyone was getting free
everyone was
uni.
getting free uni
Thanks,
at the time.
everyone.
But Bill didn't pursue the army. However, on his official records, he is listed as a former serviceman, which is a little bit funny.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you for a moment? Did you say he was private?
No, but he was just known as Private Bill Shorten by
Okay.
people. It's one of the nicknames that he's got in his career.
Okay.
There's a few.
Okay, cool.
They're as
cool,
interesting
cool.
as the man himself.
So you could nickname him, if you really wanted to, as Private Will Dick Shorten.
Yeah, William. Yep. Private Will Dick Shorten.
Great news. All right, continue.
All right, Will Dick. William Dickley did a Bachelor of Arts, which he finished in 82, and law in 92, and was involved with labor groups on campus. He established, or helped establish, Network, which is aligned with Labor Right, as well as doing some other union work for student unions and such. It's at this time, in 1986, that he was accused of a rape that allegedly occurred at a network camp in Port Arlington, which he denies happening. Talk about it a little more later. Did you know about this?
No, I didn't. And also, while I'm like, damn, Bill Shorten, I'm also like, well, yeah, he's a politician. Of course he probably raped someone.
Exactly.
Allegedly.
There's a little bit of that feeling where, I mean, when I was looking this up, a lot of the articles were about Christian Porter, if you remember him.
I remember that.
And a lot of the articles talking about Bill Shorten's rape case were actually just bringing up, well, why wasn't Bill Shorten pilloried in such and such way? And we will get to that at some point, but it happens at this point in his life. He denies that they ever had sex. He was known as an incredible recruiter while he was at uni for unions and such. Amazing face-to-face and never stopped working. He did a European gap year in 1990 as a
Samesies.
23-year-old. Right before doing your Bachelor of Law, of course.
Yeah, my Bachelor of Law that I did.
What's your favorite law?
I like the ones that I can break and no one finds out.
Dun dun. Now, we get the first. Bill Shorten incompetently tries to mount some sort of coup event of his life. Bill tried to take over the left-wing Australian Theatrical and Amusement Employees Association to establish that the right-wing network was ready for the bigger show.
What a vibe, buddy.
So, we're back. We've got audio again. Archie's joined us, and we were talking about the right-wing network. So, Bill Shorten, to be clear, not a clown. The Australian Theatrical and Amusement Employees Association covers ushers, people who serve food at sporting events, at theatrical events, the people who aren't actually part of the sports or the theatre. So they all got jobs as ushers to drum up support for the right-wing union, which is what we said right when the audio went down, and you had a lovely laugh.
Yeah, and I just have to reiterate, that's so fucking petty. That's so fucking petty.
Bill
What do you mean they joined?
So they all got jobs as ushers at different sporting locations mainly. Some in the theatre, but mostly in sporting locations. And through doing that, they were able to join the union, and then they wanted to essentially have a coup where a bunch of members of this faction, and that's the thing that Bill Shorten's known for, is playing factions against each other. Australian politics has these things called factions. To be clear, it's some nerd shit. But Bill Shorten's very good at playing factions against each other. However, the attempt to take over this union did fail. Aaron Patrick, a friend of Bill's at the time, says that within an hour, the vote was clear, we had been crushed. In hindsight, It was obvious why the campaign had failed. The union leadership was doing a good job. It was committed to helping its members, didn't make cozy arrangements with employers, and wasn't badly run. It didn't deserve to be kicked out.
So what was the point of all of that? What was the point of trying to, like, oust this current union leadership?
So that...
For fun?
Well, that's what some people, say. I'm sure if you asked Bill, and if I read the rest of his book, he probably covers it, there would be a reason he might have some complaints about the union, although some people think that those complaints weren't valid. But it does seem as though there was a general move towards a more right-wing union by some members of the labor right. Other members at this time, recount that they realized Bill was in it for Bill, when they realized that he had kind of let go of their effort to cozy up with senior union members at the expense of the movement itself. So after he finishes uni, his mum says that he has to do law for a while, and he does a few interviews, including one at Slater and Gordon.
Nice.
How do you know about them?
I just hear them a lot. That just sounds familiar.
You'll hear about them a bit more.
Oh, no.
So the person who interviewed him was Julia Gillard.
No, it wasn't.
He seems like he went pretty well, but he turned it down. She remembers him at the time as being a bright person. He ended up working with Maurice and Blackburn while still working with the union, with some legal capacity now. He wasn't there for long, but a colleague remembers him as always saying he wanted to be Prime Minister one day.
Oh, Bill.
William Richard. He never made it, spoiler alert. But he started working with the Australian Workers' Union in 1994 in various roles in membership and governance. In 94 itself, he recruited scrap metal foundry workers into the union, people who melt and do things with scrap metal. I don't know. They founder. I've never been in a foundry, but he got them a pay rise, and they started calling him King Billy for a while, another nickname. He tried to get into the 1996 federal election, but the incumbent Bob Secoombe beat him in primaries for Maribyrnong. Maribyrnong? You know. Maribyrnong.
Sorry to everyone in Melbourne.
Everyone in Melbourne should be sorry. During his time with the AWU, Workers' Union, he was accused of not pursuing Bruce Wilson for siphoning $400,000 from construction companies that were meant for work-safe improvements. The person who did the paperwork for Bruce Wilson was his lover at the time, a lawyer at Slater and Gordon named Julia Gillard. One for a future episode, perhaps, but she features pretty heavily in this one. Bill's role in this was stopping people from pursuing recompense from Bruce Wilson, including his redundancy payment. He wasn't fired, they made him redundant. Most eerily, he threatened Bob Kernahan, Victorian president of the AWU. So he said, "If you pursue this, a lot of good people will get hurt, and you will be on your own. Look, Bob, you've been lined up to take a safe Labour seat in Melton, in the Victorian Parliament." So Bob Kernahan, who was, hoping to get the seat of Melton, suffers a nervous breakdown after being abused by members of the AWU for trying to pursue Wilson. He ended up abandoning his plans to enter Parliament, and so Melton was handed to Shorten.
Damn.
Which he ended up turning down to be State Secretary of the AWU in 1998. As Secretary, he was known for recruiting people and calming bruised egos. So,
yeah, fair enough. That tracks.
Yeah, he basically threatens this guy out, gets the goons on him, takes his job, and then turns it down anyway. To go do essentially his old job again.
Petty motherfucker, I love it.
He's a bit, bitchier than you realize.
Yeah, honestly.
There's a little bit to him. He signs up netballers and chicken farmers to the Workers' Union. There's a lot of growth, and he spoke a lot in a lot of different locations. And he's always been regarded by all the political commentators as being good at the stump speech, which is basically you put something down and stand on it and talk to workers outside their workplace or at their place of, the bar that they go to. In 1998, while he's secretary, the Esso gas plant at Longford exploded, killing 2 and injuring 8, leaving Victoria without natural gas for 3 weeks. Do you hear about this?
No.
It was, you were only, like, 25, so you can't...
Sorry, run that year by me again.
1998.
Okay, sure. I was 25 then.
And I guess there was a lot going on in your life at that time. I mean, you were trying to be a lion tamer. You had no time to pay attention to Esso, who tried not to pay about anything. They dilly-dallied, and Bill was the one speaking to the media as the president of the workers' union, representing workers who died in the explosion. Marr describes this as him learning that being the trusted voice in a catastrophe wins public respect.
And I know for a fact this is going to be important later.
Yes.
Because I know about the big one.
Yes, the big one, and that'll come up not too long from now. But we're going to move on to Bill's love life for a second.
Okay.
So a bit more happens here than you realize.
All right,
around
Bill.
this time, he dates and stops dating, but he lives with her for a while. Nicola Roxon, who's the future Attorney General and is a longtime friend of Bill's, coming to his aid politically, nerd shit.
That's nerd love.
However, at some point after that, he starts dating Deborah Beale, long-term daughter of long-term daughter to.
She's been daughter for a while.
She's been daughter to the while. Daughter of long-term Liberal Party member and air traffic management millionaire, something else Beale. I wrote it down somewhere. I'm sure, maybe Tom, but yes, her father was a rich air traffic management guy, as well as a Liberal Party member. She's, however, described as rather more left-wing than him, and does make him reconcile with his father before he dies. His father had drifted apart from the family due to alcoholism or something. That's what Bill says in his book. I don't know, I get it. He works on a ship, he drinks, so whatever. Bill, your father sounds like every other character I've heard about.
I feel like every dad from that generation had a problem with alcohol. Like, that's just kind of how you survived.
Is it a
now
problem?
You can have problems with drugs or vapes
Yeah.
or so many other substances.
But, you can still have a problem with alcohol, and that's still allowed.
Yeah, you're allowed to.
It's encouraged.
I think it's pretty encouraged, yeah.
I mean, you know where we are. Bill becomes National Secretary of the AWU in 2001 and is re-elected in 2004. In 2001, the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union was carrying out a small-scale vandalism and destruction campaign against certain factories. They smashed computers, they let off fire extinguishers, they had crowbars, they made the staff scared, and so on. The AWU was embarrassed by this, except for Bill Shorten. So Bill maneuvers the Manufacturing Workers Union people accused of some of the vandalism into a photo of Kim Beazley, then leader of Labour, which Kim Beazley then has to walk back because obviously there's no place for violence in Australia.
Sure.
But it's a fun little moment. We have these factories being smashed by, a group of opportunistic thugs, as it were. We love that. But during this time, he's regarded as being better for business than some other union leaders have been. He gets a bunch of enterprise bargaining agreements going. We've both signed a lot of these. These have been matter of course throughout our employment, but these were relatively new, and it basically means that the employer is paying the union fees. And Marr describes his focus as being mostly on bringing in more money and membership into the union, however that's done, even if that's done via an agreement with the companies themselves. Now, if this meant companies had to follow awards and union rates, that would be great. However, there are accusations, and some pretty founded ones, that companies will get preferential treatment for giving the money to the AWU. Clean Event, an event running company that does things like getting ushers to sporting stadiums, it comes up a weird amount.
What?
There's a company called Clean Event that he's now working with as an AWU person, doing an employment bargaining, the ones.
Yeah.
And they got weekend penalty rates cut from their EBA in 2004, signed by Bill Shorten. In 2006, further cuts meant that workers were getting paid $14 on public holidays when the award wage would have been $33.
Holy shit.
Thanks, Bill. He hates...
I
guess...
So what? He tries to unsuccessfully coup a related workers' union, and then when he has more power and more control, he goes back into the industry and just goes like, fuck all of you.
Yeah, fuck all of you. You don't get a union anymore. You're just signing this contract now.
What the fuck?
I don't know what his thing is with theater. He's known for debating in school, and when he's young, there's some stories about him and his twin brother, both of whom are named after their father, being in plays together and such. But why he hates ushers?
Maybe an usher was mean to him one time, and he was like, I will never in my life forget this.
I will never ush again.
I will never ush again.
At the court case about the dodgy union payments, Bill said, well, if we went to a fairground or a dog track or a racetrack and find everyone there receiving double time and a half plus casual loading, that to me is fanciful in the real world.
What do you mean fanciful? If you work on a weekend, you should get paid more. It's a weekend.
It's fanciful in the real world, even if that's what, like, the law kind of says.
What a fanciful law we have.
Why do we have the law then? Oh. Get rid of the fanciful law. I don't need a law that says I can only have 5 goblets filled with polyjuice potion. I don't have any. It's not real. It's fanciful. He was untouched legally in the court case, which also involved paid education leave, which we're going to leave alone because it was 23 years ago. But during this time, all the money coming in meant that union parties were apparently lit. Gough Whitlam at one of the yearly galas described them as being a long way from the shearing shed. He runs for Victoria State President of the union in 2002, and after his loss, he's called Bye Bye Bill. Another nickname. In 2003, he supports Mark Latham for Labour leader, who recalls him as Little Billy Shorten. And Latham claims that Shorten urged him to support the free trade agreement with the United States, a move that is surprising for him to support given his, union's beliefs about the free trade agreement and what that would mean about Australian jobs, Australian manufacturing. And Shorten allegedly said, "That's just for the members. We need to say that sort of thing when they reckon their jobs are under threat. I want it to go through. The US alliance is too important to do otherwise."
Yeah, that to me kind of sums up his attitudes and behavior, it seems, both publicly and privately. It's like, I'll do whatever I want, as long as I say the right things.
Exactly.
I think that's a big thing for him.
And he does seem to really believe in US-style capitalism and the liberalization of the economy.
He's a Republican, so,
Yes.
not like US Republican, but he believes Australia should be a republic. And like samesies,
Yeah, same. It's the kind of causes, I agree with that. It's just so far from the things I, care about actively.
Yeah, true.
So it's I can't build a coalition from there, but, because it's such a low-stakes kind of thing that even Bill Shorten, establishment Bill, can say, I want to be a republic.
Yeah.
Samesies, though.
Samesies, though.
Absolutely samesies. So, 2005 through 2008, Bill Shorten is Labour Victoria's state president, which he gets in after some crazy faction war in the pre-selection. So, the way pre-selections work is it's not regular members. There's all these important people who are councillors or whatever that vote within the party for who it is that they're going to be putting forward, and that's how the names that we get to vote for end up in front of us. Mm-hmm. So he first convinced the Electrical Trades Union to align with his faction rather than the socialist left with Sir Combe. His faction are known as the Short Cons.
Because this isn't a visual medium, I'm just shutting my eyes for a minute.
Yes.
I just need a moment to...
They're the Short Cons, because they're Bill Shorten's conservatives.
Yeah, go on. Fuck it, why not?
He asks and gets help from Sang Nguyen, who was promised a seat for mustering the Vietnamese community and thus the electorate towards, Labour. But he betrays Sang, gives the seat to a friend of his instead.
Of course.
He then becomes friends with George Seitz, who ran a big Serbian... it's described as a branch stacker. So branch stacking is when you're doing faction things, is when you get a bunch of the votes to all agree with somebody, and you get all your people in the branches so you can guarantee all those votes. And so you're able to control a big block of votes. And so You're an important person in the city. So he becomes friends with George Seitz, who runs a big Serbian branch, and Haki Suleiman, who runs a Turkish branch. At one point, they fight in the streets about Bill Shorten, even though they're both in favor of Bill Shorten. There's a lot of conflicting stories as to what the fight was about. We're not going to get into it, but there's Turks and Serbs fighting in the streets about Bill Shorten. That's the kind of country that we were growing up in.
Bizarre.
Do you remember this?
No.
No, neither do I. And Bob Sir Combe realized that the electrical trades unions had betrayed him, and he withdrew from trying to contest. So this is how Bill Shorten becomes Labour Victoria State President. However, right before he left, Bob, said on the ABC, "The central problem in Victorian Labour is their very feral right, seeking to take everything in their weight. Shorten is not the messiah, he's just a naughty right-wing boy."
That should have been the title of his book.
No, just a naughty right-wing boy.
Just a naughty right-wing boy. And he should be
Just
out on
a
a
right-wing-
fur rug and, He's like, I'm just a naughty right-wing boy. Don't take it so seriously.
I'm just a boy, naughty right-wing boy. Dean Miggle, the electrical trades union head, said after, betraying somebody for Bill Shorten, "The one thing about Bill Shorten is that if you're no value to him, he doesn't go out of his way to be your friend." Shorten stopped returning his calls.
Okay, so he
After.
ghosts,
Exactly, once he gets
Alright.
what he needs. As Labour president, he begins to be known by his enemies and some friends as Showbag Shorten. Great PR, no substance. In 2005, an article was written about him that describes him this way: "Bill Shorten likes to be liked, and he's good at it too. He's handsome, smart, boyishly charming."
I think the problem is he's not, ugly, and he's not stupid, and I suppose he's not mannishly charming. So, I guess you have to describe him the other way, don't you?
You have to. You kind of have to give it to him. He's ruggedly handsome, or whatever it was. And a reflex flatterer, almost a flirt. His weakness, say those who know him, is that he needs to bask in the glow of others' love and admiration. He needs to be loved.
Oh, daddy issues.
A different source says, even when he fucks you over, he wants you to like him. He rings and tries to make up.
Oh, daddy issues.
So 2006, we get to the Beaconsfield mine disaster, which I think you knew was coming.
Yes.
Again, Bill's talking to the press about the dangerous environment at the mine, about what needs to be done, about union work, mine safety, not about should we be doing any of this mining in the first place. That's not important. Reporter Richard Carlton of 60 Minutes had just asked the mine manager a question about his negligence in his role when he had a heart attack on the spot and died before the mine manager could answer. Do you hear?
No, he didn't.
Yeah, do you remember
No, he
this?
didn't. What the
yeah,
fuck?
yeah. So this guy, he had a heart attack. He was asking a question. Richard Carlton. I'll show you a picture of this guy. Hopefully, not a picture of him having the heart attack.
God.
But yeah, right after he asked the question, this gentleman, you can see right there, it says died 7th May, Beaconsfield, 2006.
Holy shit.
Multiple award-winning journalist. The question he'd actually asked were, on 26 October last year, not 10 meters from where these men are now entombed, you had a 400-ton rock fall. Why is it? Is it the strength of the seam or the wealth of the seam that you continue to send men into work in such a dangerous environment? And then he has a heart attack.
This is giving, the original version of Katy Perry, Please Stop, said by that nun before she immediately died.
I don't know what that is.
Katy Perry was going to buy, I don't think it's actually a nunnery, but basically a religious building where nuns lived. And a nun on news television was like, Katy Perry, please stop. And then she just died. She immediately died.
Oh no, I guess, did Katy Perry buy the nunnery in the
I
end?
don't know if she bought the nunnery in the end.
That's cursed.
Yeah, that's cursed.
What do you mean she died?
Explains why her music is, the way it is, but...
Weird how few people die on live TV, given how many people
Live TV
die.
happens is? Yeah.
Yeah, and that too. You'd think we'd see
The Venn
more of it.
diagram should be a little bit thicker, but it's
think
not.
so, and people do silly things on live TV all the time.
Very
play
true.
cricket. You can die doing that. Shout
Yeah.
out Philip Hughes.
Oh, God.
Yanni, cut this. At some point, he's CEO of Netball Australia and worked for Cricket Australia at this time, but it's not important. When Rudd wins the 2007 election and Bill wins Mirrabong, he's mad that Shorten had backed Kim Beazley instead of him. And Shorten and Rudd start a long career of kind of arguing with each other all the time.
This tracks from what I also know of Kevin Rudd. These are just two bitches fighting.
These are just two bitches fighting, and one of them loves uni and the other loves unions. So, after 2007, Shorten becomes Parliamentary Secretary for Disability Services, which is described as humiliating, which, it sounds honourable. The building joked, "We fixed Bill up with a job as Parliamentary Secretary for people who can't wipe their own asses."
Fuck me.
Yeah, that's Parliament House, everyone. But he's regarded to have excelled in the role, spearheading the NDIS and working quietly in the background. In 2008, he divorces Debbie after they had no children. Bill seems to have wanted kids. At some point, he's quoted as saying, "There's nothing to do with my sperm."
Well, that's good to know.
Although, by the time he divorced Debbie, by the time he split up with Debbie, he'd already been seeing... No, I'm not accusing him of infidelity. But he had already been seeing Chloe Bryce Parkin in September of 2007. She's pregnant in winter of 2009, and they marry that November. Chloe is Governor General at the time, Quentin Bryce's daughter, and at the wedding, he converts from Catholic to Anglican, citing the Anglican Church's attitudes about blended families, stem cell research, same-sex marriage, and IVF. He's simultaneously trying really hard to unify different disability groups, much like a union, rather than having all of the different groups, cerebral palsy, autism, dyslexia, meaning the government differently, disparately, on their own. Rudd says he's doing well and promotes him to the bushfire recovery minister, but does not promote him to the front bench, which is some nerd shit. We don't care about that. But, he's taken what he's learned from unions and his skills from unions, and he's putting that to the disability world and saying, hey, you all who can't walk good and you all who can't think good, we can come together and be a union and get the NDIS.
I think this is a really interesting road for him to have taken because, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, being able to unionize disparate peoples who, all have a common goal, which is support. But it doesn't sound like he runs unions in a very, positive way.
No, he's good at getting the union together. And then he gets it and he's like, well, let me get what I need and make sure I get the favors I need.
Yeah, hey, if we put all of our voices together, we'll have one big voice. But that's my voice now. And fuck the lot of you.
Exactly. Like, Bill cares about Bill. I don't even think it's necessarily money. I think it's more power influence for Bill, which is so sad given he's such a boring guy. In the 2010 leadership challenge, he votes for Gillard over Rudd. It's a side note in this story. You might be able to hear our lizards. But rumors abound that he was instrumental in getting Gillard to run against Rudd, even getting Gillard enough votes by calling people to the middle of the night for the ballot. Gillard treats him well because of their mutual ties to Labour, right? Bill explicitly and Gillard via their support of her. He was promoted to Minister for Financial Services and Superannuation, and then in 2011 also Workplace Relations. In 2012, when Gillard's increasingly unpopular, he's asked to comment on something Gillard said about the Peter Slipper case, and I know you got this on linked for us, so I'll cut that in.
I haven't seen what she said, but let me say I support what it is that she said.
Well, what's your view?
Well, my view is what the Prime Minister's view is.
Surely you must have your own view on this, Bill Shorten.
Oh, I'm sure she's right.
He checked out at this point. I think people in the background seem to be saying Bill knew that it was kind of over and he's not trying to ruffle feathers, really. Around this time is Piegate, which I won't get into too much here because I know you'll be covering, but it's around now. There's also rumors that he's been colluding with Rudd if he came back to the party to try to be treasurer, and he's denied it. In 2012, in February, during the leadership spill, one of many, Gillard wins 71-31, and Rudd promises never to challenge her again, which is where this story ends, obviously.
Yeah.
Bill Shorten also faces unspecified rumors of his infidelity around now, doing an article with the Herald Sun titled "Our Love is Strong" with his wife.
Well, that's nice.
In March of 2013, Rudd challenges for leadership again, and Shorten again supports Gillard, describing her as a strong leader, unanimously endorsed by her team. That was March. In June of 2013, Rudd challenges again, and by now most Labour members have defected to him. That's 2 times after he's promised never to challenge her again. Shorten backs him, calling Gillard late in the afternoon to say he wouldn't be voting for her. However, his delays means Rudd doesn't trust him all the way. Rudd wanted his support a while earlier, and he dilly-dallied until he knew which way the wind was blowing. Because Bill Shorten wants to be in Parliament, and he'll get along with Kevin Rudd if he has to, but he doesn't want to have to. But he will.
Yeah.
So, none of that matters. Labour loses the election in 2013, and Rudd leaves again on the Thursday after. Shorten goes for the leadership, becoming leader of the opposition, beating Albanese in a vote from the caucus rather than the rank-and-file members. So the caucus, which is a couple hundred people, voted for Bill Shorten. However, the members who vote on this, and I don't know who those people are, let me know Get in touch. Leave a comment if you get to vote on who gets to. If you're one of those people, how did that happen to you?
Yeah, hey, who the fuck are the members and how do we become one?
Yeah, did you fill out a form? But about 18,000 versus 12,000 people preferred Albo at the time. It's on the day that he nominates for leadership that Kathy comes out accusing Shorten of raping her when she was 16 and he was 19. There's nothing very funny about it. The police's exact words were they had no reasonable prospect of conviction. She sticks around a while in the news, but interest in the story pretty rapidly drops and she doesn't seem like she's having a great time with it. Can you imagine?
Yeah. And what year was this again?
2013.
Okay, so absolutely pre-Me Too movement.
I think so. I think that comes up around when we have Trump
Yeah, that sounds about right.
coming up. Like later in the Obama years.
2015, 2016?
I think so.
Yeah.
We'll check the monument later. From 2013 to 2016, after Labour loses the election, Bill Shorten is in charge of Labour in the opposition. At some point during this time, he's quoted as saying that Napoleon is his hero because of his military prowess or whatever.
And because he's like, what, another just little man? How tall is Bill Shorten?
You know, I hadn't checked.
Real quick check. Does his name match? Is he truly
Is he
short?
It says, why does he have an IMDb profile? It is him. So his IMDb says he's 5'10".
Okay, so
we've
you're
also-
taller than Bill Shorten.
By about an inch. Other suggested questions are, what does Bill Shorten?
I mean, tell me, what does?
So, Napoleon said that you have to attack the enemy's weakest point, concentrate your attacks there, and for Bill Shorten, that was Tony Abbott. And during this period, well, he's in charge of the opposition, which we're going to breeze through because I don't give a shit. Once they're in politics, they're boring. But they went hard at him, and it worked. Tony Abbott was pretty unpopular, and shortly before the election, Malcolm Turnbull takes over the Liberal Party from Abbott. Although Labour gained 14 seats from the previous election, Turnbull's Liberal Party won by 1 seat, one of the closest elections in modern history. From 2016 through 19, he's still in charge of the opposition, loses badly to ScoMo in 2019, and resigns as leader. At the time, the Labour Party attributes a lot of this to Shorten's personal unpopularity, with some stats saying that he was the most unpopular Labour leader in more than 30 years. Albo comes in and appoints him Shadow Minister for NDIS and Government Services, and in 2022, when Albo wins, Shorten becomes Minister of the NDIS, which brings us roughly to where we are now. More politics have happened, but he largely votes along the lines of the sitting government, or attacks them kind of limply from the opposition. He's not a very interesting figure once he's in politics, I don't think. The last thing I want to note before we hand over to what it means that Bill Shorten's retiring and what the Bill Shorten story actually is, what the people want to hear about. I just want to note that the football team that he's a fan of is a matter of some controversy as to when he stopped supporting a team and started supporting another team. This is AFL.
Juicy.
I'm not going to get into it because it doesn't matter, but it was something that was controversial. A few different papers have articles that have people saying he actually didn't support the Swans or the Pies or whatever until, because there's so many pies in this. That's why he got in trouble at the pie shop, because he's like, I don't like the pies until the Swans come home. And that's the Bill Shorten story. So, Karen, what are you thinking about Bill Shorten now that you know a little bit more now that you know the most about the man?
Alright, well, now that I know the most about the man, there was some really fun stuff in there. I think it's given him more character in my eyes, that's for sure. He's not just like some weird fucking nobody guy who, I don't think I'd notice if Bill Shorten walked past me on the street. I'd be like, that's a dad. That's just somebody's dad.
What if him and his twin brother walked past you?
I'd be like, oh, twin dads. That's
and
crazy.
They're both in red dresses.
I'd be like, wow. Twin dads, gender fluid, living their best lives. Amazing.
And then he came up to you and said, I'm Bill Shorten.
I'd be like, wow, drag is alive and well. This is great.
He's not a figure that will go down in any... I don't think there's going to be a suburb named after him one day.
God, they're probably fucking his in Canberra.
That's for prime ministers.
That's true. Maybe he'll get a straight.
That's for the motherfuckers who actually did it, Bill. That's for the motherfuckers who get a suburb, Bill. Not failed Australian circus performers union ouster. But that makes sense to me. He's a kind of limp guy. There's a bit of bitchiness to him.
Absolutely. So, in terms of the last kind of year for Bill Shorten, it's typical politics stuff. He says something and he goes, I hate the opposition party. They're pieces of shit. And then they go, no, you're a piece of shit. And then they just go back and forth like they always do. Just about who's the bigger piece of shit. Spoiler alert, you're all pieces of shit.
They're all pieces of shit.
But in particular, Shorten has been involved in a bill proposing massive changes to the NDIS. So, as we've just discussed, the NDIS is almost like his kind of project. He really started the whole idea of it, got it running, got the bill into Parliament to pass it back in, 2007 or something? Or
During that period.
2007 he suggested it, 2013 and 14 is when it was actually rolled out.
Yeah, a few people mention in the biography of him that he was most driven during this time, and some people say that he really developed a love and passion for supporting disabled Australians during this time.
Which is really funny.
He emailed my family once.
And it's really funny because in the way that he gave birth to the NDIS in a way, he also has really fucked it up in the last, couple of months. Basically what happened is, in December of 2023, there was a review into the NDIS to kind of ascertain what the needs of Australians were, whether they're being met, how funding can be used, what supports are actually going to be important to Australians living with a disability, how can the government better support them. And then following that, in August of this year, Bill Shorten, I guess, basically just said, oh, fuck that, and decided to cut a shitload of benefits, a shitload of services, all in the pursuit of saving money. So I've got some stats here. At the moment, the NDIS for the 2022 to 2023 fiscal year was...
Season.
Yeah, the season.
Australia.
Yeah. So Australia, so it was a shit season. We've had better. But we've also had worse, so, pretty mid. But it was costed at $35.2 billion for that time. And then for the 2025-26 season, it was projected that it will cost $50.
Oh.
They were then saying that in the decade coming, that it could go up to as much as $90 billion.
Like the cost for running
Like the cost of
NDIS.
running the NDIS.
But that's, like, the government, it's they make the money.
Yes.
So that's, they say that it costs that.
Yes.
And they can just print that. Yeah, of course. It's going to get so expensive.
There's been a lot of discussion online. There's been a lot of Labour kind of trying to frame this as, yeah, what we're doing is we are reducing services, I guess, to get rid of shonky providers. So people who are meant to be providing services to Australians with disabilities, but are actually just taking government money and not actually doing anything. Of which there are many, I'm sure. But on top of that, there is some insane stuff that they've chosen to kind of remove from the NDIS. I don't want to go too much into it because in researching the NDIS from its conception to now, just like a fuckload has happened. And not all of it is very positive. Some of it's very cool. Some of it's very, very uncool.
We'll have to do an NDIS episode at some point.
Absolutely, I want to do... Oh, hi, Archie. He's pissed about the NDIS too. He gets it, Something that got a lot of media attention is menstrual products are no longer... Well, they weren't in the first place, but menstrual products aren't going to be covered because having a period is not a direct result of having a disability. Even though we've seen a lot of studies come out saying that being able to afford feminine hygiene products is a massive barrier to people with a disability because you've also got all of those other aspects, and they're expensive. It's not easy, but they've been put in the same category as vapes and gaming consoles and, really fun things. Like, when I want to have a fun time, I go out and buy a pack of tampons, and I just go ham. I just love that shit, How many can I fit?
There's a real pandemic of kids being too into tampons.
Yeah, Tide Pod challenge, but it's tampons. I'm just eating them. I'm just wolfing them down. Oh, they taste so good.
Now, kids, if I see any tampons in your mouths, you're going to detention.
More importantly, it is suggested that respite and vacation care isn't going to be covered anymore, which is kind of insane. As well as when it comes to kids with disabilities, which is something that the Labour Party really said, yeah, we want to make sure that kids are all on equal footing, blah, 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 blah. It's not going to be covering, textbooks in Braille. It's not going to be covering other adapted learning tools. It's kind of like a very Bill Shorten, say one thing, do another, It feels very, very typical of the way that he runs things and the way that he operates.
Is this an election move, do you think? Is it just we need to say that we're saving money, or is there some pressure from certain groups?
The pressures are twofold. So you've got one side, which is we need more supports, and the NDIS does need to have a bit more of a thorough review and reconstruction, because it isn't really fit for purpose. It's not built to actually serve people in the way it should be serving them.
At this stage, it's also something like 12, 15 years old.
Yeah.
Even in the best case scenario, I'm sure there'd be things that would need to be updated.
Times change. And the other side of that coin is that it costs a lot of money. We're in a cost of living crisis. Government wants more money.
Which they make. Again, they can just make it happen.
So basically, he submitted his bill to Parliament to actually...
Bill's bill.
Bill's bill went to Parliament in August of this year. Blah, blah, blah. Political shit. And 2 weeks after it passes, again in August, Bill Shorten announces his retirement. Which is, feels like he really wanted to just get this shit done however it needed to be done. And just be like, alright, cool. I'm ollieing out. All done. Fuck your life, bing bong.
Bill Bong.
Bill Bong. So what's next for Bill Shorten? Well, lucky for Canberrans, and lucky particularly for University of Canberra students, he's going to be the new Vice-Chancellor of the university. Now, I'm personally devastated because I attended UC and didn't get to have Bill Shorten shake my hand when I got my degree that I worked very, very hard for. My very, very difficult arts degree with one exam. And
when I did my engineering degree, it was one of Bill Shorten's old mentors, Gareth Evans, who was the Chancellor of the university while I was there, and I didn't get to meet him because he was tired on the day of my graduation, and so a different lady came.
He was committing too many alleged war crimes.
Alleged. He didn't do it, and I've never heard stories of him standing behind people and breathing down their necks instead of asking them to move out of the way. That'd be weird if I'd heard that story
That's
from
crazy.
More than one person. So, UC.
But anyway, yeah, so Bill Shorten is following in the footsteps of Julie Bishop, who was a Liberal Party member who, when she retired from politics, went on to become Chancellor of ANU, so the Australian National University. It's another university in Canberra, arguably the more prestigious one, and she got Chancellor, which is already more prestigious. So Bill's not doing as well as he probably could be, but, he's doing that now. Good for him.
And it does seem like a place he can stay perhaps in some level of spotlight. I saw a comment about this where something that he was saying about UC was that it has a better rate of turning people out who are first in family and better job outcomes for people who go to UC versus ANU. It's a university for people who live in the real world a little bit.
And look, I'm not going to argue that.
So he's going to UC, and we wish him best of luck at UC.
Yeah, hope he has a great time. I hope he steps on so much, rabbit and kangaroo shit. If there's as much shit as there was there when I went there, he's not going to be able to avoid it. But what's next for Labour? So at the moment, basically I imagine in the next week or so, what they're trying to do is sort out who is going to be the candidate who takes over Bill's seat in Maribyrnong in Melbourne. There's kind of two competing factions at the moment. You've got the Australian Workers' Union, who we've already talked about.
His old friends.
His old friends. They say, hey, this is a Labour rights seat. We deserve this seat. This is ours. They're being contested by the United Workers' Union, saying that, no, this is a left faction seat. We deserve to have it. It's our time. So they're basically both union parties, but one is left aligned and one is right aligned. So right is a woo and left is ooh woo. And you'll basically understand where we're at. Though there is an interesting kind of underdog in the competition as well. So recently the Australian Electoral Commission has dissolved the seat of Higgins, which is also in Melbourne, I guess. And the
Shout out.
Shout out to my boys in Higgins.
Shout out everyone in Higgins holding it down.
There is a politician on that side, Michelle Ananda Raja, who was the member for Higgins. And it seems like it's a suggestion that she might also go for this seat. So it could be really interesting. It might just stay as like a union-held seat, or maybe, you know, this third party will come through and just be like, all right, whatever, I don't care.
What is Michelle Ananda Raja like? Because, you know, one of Yanni's top tips, you can't trust Indians in Australian politics. We'll lie to you.
Look, I'd love to tell you more about her, but I simply have no fucking clue. I know that she's not in the union.
Oh, no. Goodness me. Well, that's a real outsider. Good luck to everyone. I'm really hoping for an uwu victory over awu. I have to assume.
But yeah, you know, that's kind of what's happening at the moment. My guess is that, I don't know, probably the AWU will get the candidature or whatever. They'll do all of that stuff. Stuff will just keep happening the way it kind of always happens. Australian politics is both comforting and incredibly boring in that the most likely thing is always going to be the thing that happens. Very rarely is there an upset.
Yeah, there's not many surprises in Australian politics. 2019, the one that was very close, you know, maybe it was a surprise. But, I mean, neither would have been a surprise. They're just
It's like, oh my god, one of them won.
No way.
This is the same man twice. What do you mean?
Were people surprised when Pauline Hanson won that seat?
I don't think so.
You were a lot older than me at the time, so...
I think Pauline Hanson is somebody else that I would love to do an episode on, because here's another thing that's Pauline Hanson and Bill Shorten related. So they worked on the NDIS bill together, right? And when the Liberal Party and the Greens Party were both delaying pushing this bill through because they wanted amendments, they wanted things to be looked over again, blah, 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 Bill Shorten and Pauline Hanson set up a little, like, TV. You know when your teacher would roll in a TV in high school and primary school and get you to watch a video? They rolled in a little TV and they put a little clock on it, and the clock was counting how many millions of dollars were being wasted every single day that the Greens and the Liberals didn't agree to the bill they put forward. Which is just like, it's so Pauline Hanson, and it's a little bit Bill Shorten.
It's a little
so it
bit
makes
Bill
sense
Shorten, and
that both of them did it together. There's a fucking photo of them standing very seriously, being like, look how much money they're wasting. And I'm like, you made this. What the fuck do you mean wasting money?
Do you reckon he bought the TV for it?
Like
that's...
for people who have jobs, they are so unemployed. Like,
there's nothing that Bill Shorten can, surely at this stage, nothing that he can meaningfully do. Pauline Hanson at least can probably still wrap fish and chips.
You know?
Like, at least she's
like,
got that skill. Bill Shorten's only been a lawyer.
Yeah.
I mean, he says he worked at a butcher for a while, so maybe he can still slice and dice.
Okay, so he sliced some deli ham. Good job.
Yeah, good. Shout out Bill for the prosciutto.
Which leads me pretty well into wrapping up some kind of like fun, almost in memoriam moments from Bill Shorten.
As we grow old.
Oh, God. So we've already spoken about one of them.
And let me say, I support what it is that she said. I mean, to be fair, that's the attitude that people have about Julia Gillard.
Yeah. It was really... Julia Gillard's another really good person to have a discussion on, mainly because of the absolute insanity that went down as soon as we had our first female Prime Minister, and how it just really brought some nut jobs out of the woodworks that had been kind of lying low for a bit, you know? It was a time of change. It was a catalyst.
We realised that we hadn't got rid of all of those currents of society.
Yeah,
in fact, they
you know,
continued to wield the institutional power that they did before.
Crazy.
And Julia Gillard helped them do it.
Even crazier. Piegate was another one that you mentioned. Now, Piegate is just a little cheeky story. Basically, Bill Shorten goes into a local pie shop in Melbourne. He wants to buy a pie for his son before he goes to footy. Aw,
Oh,
how wholesome, how nice.
very nice.
He goes up to the pie shop owner and she gets the pie ready for him. She says something along the lines of, "It's soft. I like Julia Gillard." And he hears, which might have been what was, I don't know, "It's soft, just like Julia Gillard." And so he yells some fuck words at her and storms out. It was a whole situation. People were like, "I can't believe he was being mean to small business."
He had to answer to the media about the pie as well. He had to concede that an apple would have been a better...
He did have to concede that an apple would have been a better treat, which is just so fucking stupid. This country is a joke. Full fucking joke. Anyway.
I think that was in The Guardian.
Yeah, it was in the fucking Guardian, you know. Prestige media. In 2015, there's a great clip of him dancing in Kiribati with some local dancers for a performance, and he looks like how a toddler dances, where they don't really know how to move their body yet. They kind of just bob up and down with their arms, mixed with a dad at like a high school party, and he's been called to come pick up his kids, and he's just looking around to see if he can see them, you know? Like, it's a real vibe. I definitely recommend having that a look. In 2016, while campaigning in supermarkets, grocery stores, that kind of thing, about cost of living, about GST, he just approaches a woman and asks her, "What's your favorite type of lettuce?" Which, really, I don't think we ask that question enough of ourselves or others.
No one's asked me, and it hurts every day I don't get to share.
Yeah, what's your favorite type of lettuce?
Cause...
That's a pretty decent lettuce. I like iceberg.
You gonna ask me why I like that type of lettuce?
Why do you like cos lettuce?
Cause...
Yeah, oh, yeah. You want to ask me why I like iceberg lettuce?
Why do you like iceberg lettuce?
Because it sunk the Titanic.
Shout out icebergs. Fuck all those people in that boat.
Another great moment from 2016, during the election, the actual physical voting aspect of it, he was seen eating his traditional democracy sausage from the middle.
What do you mean from the middle? Like the top of the triangle first?
Yeah, like it was in a bun, right? Like a hot dog style bun.
Oh,
you
what?
know,
Not even
and
like
he,
a...
And he held it like you'd hold like corn on the cob.
What
And
you're
he
doing right now, you look like you're holding the Holy Grail in front of me. But okay, like holding corn on the cob.
Yeah, so instead of eating, you know, a sausage from one end,
Yeah.
you know, we'll call this, you know, traditional style.
Standard
where,
American
you know,
English
you bite.
sausage
You've eaten
eating.
them. If you've eaten them before, you've eaten them before. What
Anything
he's
that
chosen to
shape.
do is to hold the ends of the actual bun,
Like a corn
and
cob.
then just like hoe into the middle of
What?
it. Just bite right into the fucking middle of it. And
Does he think he'll get 2 hot dogs out of it?
there's something so uniquely embarrassing about the way that politicians eat, because it's like nobody's ever hung out with them long enough to observe the way they eat and then make a comment on it.
Yeah.
Like, this is the sign of people with no friends.
No.
Like, nobody's ever, like, seen him do that when he was, like, I don't know, 30 and gone like, "Hey, Bill, what the fuck are you doing?
What's wrong with you?
What the fuck are you doing? You absolute fucking sinner."
That doesn't seem like a more convenient way to eat a hot dog. Is it like a bit he has? Maybe he wants to make a little boat in the middle.
It just, like...
Throw up the bits of hot dog into it and feed it to his son before feeding.
Well, pies are right out, so it's gotta be sausage sizzles.
That's infuriating to know that that's how he eats. What is it with our leaders and being raised by single parents and not knowing how to eat on camera or whatever?
Like, it just... absolute insanity. From 2018, this is some footage that kind of re-emerged in the last couple of years. He met Arnold Schwarzenegger at a fun run, and while awkwardly trying to kind of like, you know, jockey through people who wanted a photo with the Governator, he goes up to him and they have a little photo, and he says, "I'm going to be the next Australian Prime Minister." And Arnold Schwarzenegger looks at him like he's an insane person and just kind of like smiles, and then Bill Shorten just toddles off. And
not realizing.
it's just like, you sound like an insane person.
Well, that matches with what, you know, people as early as his first job out of uni are saying. Like, he was always talking about how he was going to be Prime Minister.
He wanted it so fucking
It seems
badly.
like the thing that's driven him his whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, he just, Some of the bloody tributes to him and stuff have such flowery language and include bits from his speech and stuff where he just fucking quotes like, "I did it my way."
What did he do his way?
Fail, I suppose. A shit job.
So
I fucked it up my own way. So there's one last thing that I really want to show you, and this is a critically important video. I don't think anything that we've discussed will be more important than this. So, I think we should cue it up.
all right, show me the video. I'll have a little watch.
Each day I listen to you fellas whinge and whine. I'd rather go to question time with Christopher Pine.
I mean, could be worse.
Yeah. Go on, keep going.
Will I rap again? It's anyone's guess, but there's more chance of Tony Abbott voting yes.
Was it still okay to dab in 2017? If you were the Australian opposition leader?
Hey Siri, is it illegal to dab if you're an Australian politician in 2017?
They're so excited about him.
They're pretty thrilled. They know they're about to get really good ratings.
I don't think that's the worst time a politician's rapped.
He actually has some bars in there, and I think that's interesting. I think also just...
It's really bad. Like, I'm not... Like, I guess it's just very Bill Shorten in that it's...
You're not going to listen to Billy Shorts when he drops the album? Where's the EP?
Bye Bye Billy.
Bye Bye Billy?
It's... Like, I mean, no, I'm not going to listen to the
King Bill?
I'm not listening to the Bill Shorten hip-hop album after what he did to the blues. But he couldn't even be bad. Like, you remember, like, John Howard, there's a real Australian leader. Remember when he, like, was playing cricket, and he wasn't just, like, not very good at it. The ball went 2 or 3 feet from him when he was trying to deliver it across the pitch. You know?
Actively bad.
If Bill Shorten was playing cricket, he'd just be, like, not very good at it.
Yeah, this would be a guy that you'd be like, oh yeah. No, I play with that guy sometimes.
He clearly...
He caught something last season.
Yeah, he's like, he knows where he's meant to stand and what the game's meant to look like. That's kind of it.
Anyway, happy Bill Shorten retirement announcement week.
Happy Bill Shorten retirement announcement week. I didn't get you anything.
Aww. Yeah. Don't worry about it. I'm not even mad.
I got you the NDIS.
Oh my god, you shouldn't have.
And the theme song cuts in now.